Hey, and welcome to another SFF Speak Out podcast. We had another great week of football, so there's a lot to cover, so let's get straight into it. Now, the first topic I wanted to cover was Alex Smith and the way he's been playing this year. He's a legitimate MVP candidate, and at this point in the season, he would be my pick for MVP. Now, he's worked really hard this off-season and has really seemed to put all facets of his game together. I feel like he's had some good years in the past where he's really earned his Pro Bowls. For example, in 2013, he really earned it. I feel like he deserved one in 2015 as well, had a really good year there. He's made plays with his feet in those years. He's known as a good runner, but he also has thrown the deep ball well in those years. However, I feel like it seems the following year he always seems to take a step back, and that's why he's always stayed in that average zone. Look at 2013, had a really good year, made the Pro Bowl, and he dropped off a bit in 2014. Then 2015 was a good year, and he dropped off a bit again last year. But he seems to have put everything together, worked really hard in his game, and for me, he's my pick this far for MVP, and hats off to him. I've got to respect the work he's put in. Now, talking of players playing their hearts out and for real, the Rams and Jared Goff seem to be for real. I thought at first they played some easier opponents, perhaps some banged up or out of sync teams, but they just keep going every week, and that passing attack looks deadly under Sean McVay. He clearly knows what he's doing both as a coach and a play caller, and he's had a brilliant effect on both Goff and the whole Rams team, and at this stage I'm willing to say that in my opinion they are arguably the best team in the NFC right now. Now, talking of players who are for real, it seems like Deshaun Watson is the real deal. He's come out and played brilliantly ever since he started, made a number of big plays, and that accumulated all up to this week when he played a solid Titans team and managed to run up the score. It looked like a college score by the end of the game. He had 5 touchdowns. It was insane. Now, in case you haven't heard the news, Mitchell Trubisky will be starting this week. Now, I can't blame the Bears for this decision, as they have had a really rough start to the season, and you start to get desperate looking for answers. And Glennon has been far from great in his first few games. He's really struggled at quarterback. Now, having said that, personally, I do feel that quarterbacks do better when they're given a few years to develop behind someone. However, I can see perhaps right now with the Bears, they're really looking for the answer, so I can see why they've done what they've done as well. So, with that covered, that's a basic overview of some of the latest news and points from the week. So, I'm going to go straight into it with my picks for the awards of the week. Now, first off, I mentioned this performance already. Offensive Player of the Week has to be Deshaun Watson. He's playing with maturity beyond his years in recent weeks, ever since he started. And like I said before, he was playing a fairly solid Titans team and managed to run up a college-like score against them. So this pick was fairly easy for me, even though there were a lot of good performances that week. Now, going on to my air and ground players of the week, my air player of the week has to be Alex Smith. He was impressive, both using his feet and throwing the ball. He made some brilliant down the field throws, which seems to be a theme of this year, but also he came up in the clutch just when they needed it and really pulled out the plays they needed to win that game. He showed another facet of his game as he continues to push himself forward as a legitimate MVP candidate. Now, my ground player of the week is Alvin Kamara. Now, I was there in London watching the game, and he was brilliant catching the ball, and also used his elusiveness to shame a few Dolphins defenders on multiple occasions. Now, another shout out I have to give here to a player's performance is LeGarrette Blount, because he ran through, over and around the Chargers and really earned some hard fought yards for his team. Defensive Player of the Week, I have to go with Tre'Davious White, who continued his great rookie campaign with brilliant coverage all game long and some big plays which really helped the Bills lock down the Falcons' explosive offense. He will also then be my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Week. Now, in Special Teams Player of the Week, this was quite a tough one. We had a number of good performances, particularly from kickers. We saw Jake Elliott have a brilliant week following up from his clutch kick last week. We also saw Phil Dawson and Robbie Gould go perfect in their kicking battle in the 49ers-Cardinals game, which ended really excitingly. So if you haven't seen it, at least go and watch the overtime, if not the whole game. But my pick has to be Greg Zuerlein. He was awesome for the Rams. He finished a perfect 7 of 7 and also added 2 PATs. Now, I have a number of underrated performances this week, so I'll get through them. There's a few that I'm going to give not just to one particular guy. So first off, I have to mention Kirk Cousins, because he played his heart out on Monday Night Football, going into a hostile environment, so I've got to give him my respect for that. Now, the next two come from the same game, and that's Jacquizz Rodgers, because he was really powerful and elusive when called on, and ran well all day, and him and Doug Martin could make a really good team with Martin returning this week. Now, the other one from that game is Cameron Brate, because he had some big catches in that game, and also some catches at the end that helped them pull it out against the Giants. Now, one final mention I have to give is to Ray Armstrong. He struggled a bit early this year for the 49ers with some silly penalties, but really bounced back last game with a pick, a sack, and some really nice plays against the run as well. So look for him to hopefully keep that momentum going. Finally, my offensive rookie of the week has to be Wayne Gallman. He looked really good both running and receiving, so hopefully for him he can now keep this momentum going. So moving on now to my picks for the week, and don't forget to comment your picks below as well. I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills. They're heading into a matchup at 3-1 after shutting down the Falcons quite impressively against a Bengals team that has been out of sync and struggled, and only finally got its rhythm against the Browns team. So I think hopefully this week this is a pretty easy pick, and I should get this one right. And again, I'm using a team that has showed it's surprisingly good, but then again isn't the best team, so I don't have to fear using up one of the top teams just yet. As I said, make sure to put your pick below. Thank you, as always, for listening, and keep looking out for more.